Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just me today. What is it? Today's Thursday. Wednesday? Thursday. Today's Thursday. Can't remember. But, anyways, I've been back at work. So it's just me this afternoon. I found there's an article I've been meaning to go through that I've wanted to go through for a little bit. I've been sitting on it for a few days, and through a combination of my both being busy and lazy, I haven't gotten to it yet. But I finally decided, I'm here, I'm working this afternoon. I just got a cup of my afternoon coffee. By the way, I'll put the link down in the description for this. This is the coffee from the Collegium. It's a Heavenly Roast coffee. This is the Seraphim blend, the Seraphic blend. I love it. I actually got I got four bags of those, and I've been drinking it a lot. It's pretty good. But anyway, to business. I didn't want this to be overly long, right? This will probably be, 10, 15 minutes. I found this article. It was actually a couple days ago now. You can see January 17th when it was published. So a little while back. I've been sitting on this for a few days. But I had a couple of thoughts about it that I just wanted to share with everybody. So let's jump right in. So this book is being published. I don't know if it's been published yet or if it's getting ready to be published, about the rise of millennial stupidity, or so the title of the book, The Dumbest Generation Grows Up, right? So the author, I can't say that I know the author. This is from the Catholic World Report, right? There we are. Mark Bauerlein. I can't say that I know him. This first paragraph was really just about him. The section that I wanted to get into was this, right? So I know I've seen on my social media pages, maybe some of you guys have too, a lot of it's memes, it's comments here and there about why millennials tend to be so unhappy, and most of them reduce it down to like some sort of economic thing. I tried to find this image, I looked for it, I couldn't find it again, but I see it on my like Facebook page all the time. My friends will share this about why millennials are so anxious or so unhappy, and it's because like they can't afford the life that their parents lived. They've got so much debt from college. They've got X, Y, and Z, right? And housing is so expensive, and so on and so forth, right? They seem to reduce it a lot to the economic sphere. And one of the things, though, that I wanted to kind of maybe hone in on was that maybe that has something to do with it, but it's certainly not everything. Good coffee. Now, so the first one, all right, this is one of the first generations. So the millennial generation is the first, as it were, in the grand scheme of things, to kind of grow up after the boomer generation. And the thing that hallmarked the boomer generation, the thing that kind of hallmarked the boomer generation was their sort of break from tradition. Everything that had been handed on to them, right? They completely rejected. This was the phrase, never trust anyone over 30, right? It was very anti-establishment. It was very anti the basis of Western civilization. Everything that had been handed on to them, they kind of just dropped the ball. And so they were the first generation when, in teaching a successive generation, they had nothing to give to them. I actually have a good quote from G.K. Chesterton that I want to share a little bit later, but back to this, right? So something about the rise of technology has something to do with this too. And so to quote from this interview with Dr. Bauerlein, so the catastrophe in raising the millennials, he says, was this: we let them plunge into their screens, build up their Facebook pages, plug into crappy music, that's true, and movies, walk around with 250 photos of themselves in their pockets, text all night, skip the reading of good books. This is, all right, skip the reading of good books, attending church, watching intelligent shows, and the study of history, politics, art, and psychology, right? That's the really important part. That's kind of what I wanted to hone in on. And he mentions that the opportunity cost of doing this is incalculable, right? It says, so what kids lost when they didn't learn about Odysseus and the Sirens, Richard III's maniacal eloquence, Anna Karenina's errant love, and the invisible man in his basement, right, is what no young person should go without, right? And the first thing you have to ask is, all right, then what are all of those things, right? What did they lose by not reading these works? And that is partially to the question of why did we used to, why were some of these books the backbone of Western education for so long? And it's precisely because, without getting into too much detail, again, I didn't want to hang on this. I wanted this to be short. Without getting into too much detail, the reason for this, the reason for the reading of great books as a backbone of Western education is precisely because it's through the reading of these stories that the individual's moral imagination is formed. Right? It's why story matters. Whether you want to hone in on, like, whether it's the Lord of the Rings, or the Chronicles of Narnia, or whether it's Sherlock Holmes, or whether it's Homer, whether it's Shakespeare, right? All of these things, what they all have in common, that notion of good story, is that it actually conveys a moral message to the reader, right? And to the child, especially, right? As they're being formed, as they're being brought up, you want them to hear stories of bravery, right? And courage, loyalty, and all of justice, all of the other, like, the virtuous behavior, right? You want them to look up to the good guys. You want them to look up to the heroes and go, I want to be like that. I want to imitate that. And you want them to be aware of humanity's pitfalls. That's the other thing that Homer and Shakespeare really managed to bring out, is how, even the hero, that they suffer very common human temptations that we all suffer and that we are all liable to fall into. And so it's through the reading of these great stories that our moral imagination is formed, and that's so important for a child's education, right? And then he goes on. I do like this quote too, right? And so here he comes to the boomers, right? He says, so the book begins, he's talking about his book that he just published. What have we done to them? By them, I mean the millennials, and by we, I mean their boomer and Generation X parents and mentors and teachers. Anyone who should have told them to learn history, right? And anyone who should have taught them to read some literature, to pray, to acquire certain taste, right? But they didn't. Instead, letting the kids be kids and congratulating themselves for their oh so liberal attitudes, right? And so out of this, it's a ridiculous notion of child-centered growth. All the adults stepped back and withheld the traditions and backgrounds and cultural literacy that would enable the young to enter the world with some surety and adeptness, right? The reason millennials are so anxious about actually having to, go out into the workforce, to work for a living, to have to fend for themselves, to have to adult, right, is because they were not given the formation to do this. And he's right. The millennials are right to be angry, right? And it's true. I look around. I'm on the cusp end of the millennial. Like, I think when, like, some of their earliest years was when I was born. But the younger ones that I know, and like the ones that I used to teach when I was teaching high school and so on, right? There's an anger that's present there. There's something in them that they know that they've not been taught, right? But as Dr. Bauerlein goes on, right, too often, though, they're angry at the wrong things. The emphasis on, well, racism or sexism and pronouns and whatever, right? What they should be angry about, and I think he's right, what they should be angry about is growing up without grown-ups, right? Without parents who are trying to be their kid's friend instead, right? So growing up without grown-ups who would stand firm for traditions and norms, right? Canons and norms of taste, right? Even if the kids wanted to reject what their elders stood for, at least they would have had something that was given to them that they could reject, right? But instead now, really, even look at school curricula now, and what are we teaching? I don't even know. Is any of it substantial? Is any of it like the great books? Is any of it logical thinking? Or is, what was one of the last articles I saw? It was a professor of mathematics from, like, the University of Indiana, something like that. Well, math is racist. I saw something else. Was it at Boulder? Or one of those other about, well, grammar is racist, right? No. As a matter of fact, as a professor of logic, I can tell you that, grammar is just the written expression of the order of things in the mind. That's why there are rules of grammar. It's meant to be a reflection of your thinking, and your thinking is meant to be a reflection of reality. And so there are rules for how subjects and verbs go together, for example, or how, adjectives can modify nouns and so on and so forth, right? There's a reason that these rules exist, and it has nothing to do with race, right? It has to do with reality. It has to do with an expression of something, right? That's why this is important. And so I just wanted to kind of, I don't know, I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. There is obviously a lot more that could be said. This is a pretty good interview. I'll put the link in the description down below, again, along with the coffee. I wanted to close, as I said, I did want to close with that quotation from G.K. Chesterton, so let me give it to you. It was, hang on, here it is. Right? 85 years ago, Chesterton got it, right? And I love this quotation. A generation is now growing old, which never had anything to say for itself except that it was young. It was the first progressive generation, the first generation that believed in progress and nothing else. They believe simply that the new thing is always better than the old thing, and the young man is always right and the old man wrong. And now that they are old men themselves, they naturally have nothing whatever to say or to do. Their only business in life was to be the rising generation knocking at the door. Now that they've got into the house and have been accorded the seat of honor by the hearth, they've completely forgotten why they wanted to come in. The aged younger generation never knew why it knocked at the door. And the truth is that it only knocked at the door because it was shut. It had nothing to say. It had no message. It had no convictions to impart to anyone. The old generation of rebels was purely negative in its rebellion, and it cannot give the new generation of rebels anything positive against which it should not rebel. It is not that the old man cannot convince young people that he's right. It's that he cannot even convince them that he is convinced. And he is not convinced, for he never had any conviction except that he was young. And that is not a conviction that strengthens with years. Right. Excellent quotation from Chesterton. And something that I think kind of really just, it hits the nail on the head for what's happening to contemporary education and why these younger millennials and whoever their successors are, right? I don't even know what the new generation is called, right? Why they are so angry, why they are so anxious about life. And it's because they have no foundation. They have absolutely no foundation. And the only way that we recover this, right? The only way that you fix this problem is by finding your foundations again. And the only way you find your foundations again is going back through history, through the traditions. You see everything that has made you who you are. Right? It's why even where I teach at the Collegium, and why even our curriculum is so focused on Plato and Aristotle and the great authors and the great poets. It's because they have something to give to us. Anyway, guys, just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention today. Hope you guys have a good rest of your afternoon, morning, or evening, or wherever you are in the world, whenever you are that you watch this. Have a great day. See you all on Friday Night Philosophy. Talk to you later.